Hello everyone, today we're going to take a look at how we can create a realistic view on MA3 built-in 3D visualizer. In the current version of 2.2.5 and above, there is a really cool feature which you can use to view the haze, and today we're going to explore that as well. So just to do a quick start, we'll patch a few fixtures onto our show. So probably I'll just get a few fiber profiles here, maybe 6 of them, right? And let's also get a few of the auras. Let's say 5 of the auras. All right, let's try to put them on a pretty good positions on the stage so that we can see them in action right here. Put our fibers a little bit apart from each other, and also our auras. So this is what we have. We'll save and exit from our patch, and we will create our own view now. So usually you have the built-in 3D page right here, which, well, you can use to view all of your lights and everything, but it doesn't look really fancy. We're going to explore on how we can make this a really fancy and really realistic view of your stage. So we'll just go ahead and simplify this page view to fit what we can use to pre-program some things. Okay, so we've got our layout pretty much set up here, ready for us to program. So I'll just first store our view to here. To start off, let's get all of our fixtures into some groups, put some dimmers, position, colors, and gobo so that we can see them in good action. So the first thing that you would want to do to enhance your visualizer is by clicking on the top left option here, which you will be shown by 3D viewer settings, which has 3 tabs called the rendering, the miscellaneous, and also the label. Right? To make all of your visualizer looks nicer, it has to do mostly with miscellaneous and rendering. So let's go ahead and see what we can do. The first thing that I would usually do is to basically remove the ambient light, because ambient light are like fighting against the sun kind of environment, which we hate. So I usually put it at about 2%. And on the point light themselves as well, it's basically how much light does a point in the 3D space in this visualizer emits. We want to keep it low as well, so we usually put it at 2%. Now right now you have a pretty good visualizer. It's not bad, you know, it looks pretty realistic. You can see all the beams and all the spots as well, but we'll make it a little bit even nicer. So for theatrical settings, this is actually pretty good. You know, it's realistic. All of the intensity of the fixtures are also matched with what you can see on the stage itself, usually, especially if you use a manufacturer fixture. However, for concerts and EDM, when you are programming, you want to see more of the beams and more of the spots. So I usually pull this up to about 250 on beam and 250 on spot as well, just so you can see a little bit more effects and you know what you're actually doing. You have bloom intensity, the bloom of your beams, basically. I usually keep it off, just on when you want to make it a little bit extra fancy, but it doesn't really feel realistic to me, so I usually just leave it off. What I love to do is to play with this render settings. So in MA3 2.2.5.2, if you hold the right click and scroll down, you will see all of this option on your select render quality. So initially it's usually no link selected, right, which, well, looks like gobo technically. Now you have more fancy options down here, like gobo animated, for example, which give you this view. You can go for high shadow fancy, which gives you pretty realistic view already, or you can go all the way into like gobo shadow haze, for example, where you have the haze view, and you can go all the way high shadow high haze, which you will get this kind of view. you can see that it actually looks really nice, and if we just tilt this a little bit, it looks really nice. But you realize there that whenever you move, you will get this icon right here, and that's because you're not putting our visualizer in a priority. So how to do that? We basically can go to miscellaneous, put it on priority, so all of the resources are now focused more on the visualizing on your system. And then to hide this funny origin right here, you can just click point of origins, it's gone. To hide all of this tool on the left side, just click show toolbar, and this is basically what you have. Right, so today we will try to work our way up all the way from a simple gobo and create our own render. Hold your click, go down, and then go to new. Here you will see all of the settings to create your own render quality. So let's just say realistic fizz. First thing that you want to do is to set the beam. You can put it on high fancy, so you have all of the beams here representing all of the gobos as well. You can put the shadow to enabled. Now what that do is basically it will consider all of the 3D objects inside the visualizer as a solid object. So whenever a light shines on it, it will actually cast a shadow. You can also change the gobo mode to be animated if you want. So if it's disabled, there's no gobo. Enabled, you have gobo. Animated, it will show the animations wheel if it is built in. But until today, I haven't seen any fixtures that has that built in. So maybe someday in the future. For multi-LED beam mode, usually we just keep it on single beam dynamic gobo. On body quality, it basically determines how good do you want to render your light fixture. So let's take a look on what that means. I will first pull the ambient lights up and go into our realistic fizz. If you have the body quality to be box, you will have a box light. You put it too low, it's very low, and you put it to ultra, you will have a realistic representation basically of the light, or well, as much as realistic as you can. Usually I will just put it as simple so that it doesn't eat too many resources to render the polygons of the light itself. Let's bring our ambient back to 2 and go into our render. Right. The last one will be dilution type, right? So dilution type basically, well, tells how much light do you lose as you go further from the light. You can always go for linear, which looks something like this, or you can go to correct, which is the correct dilution type of a light. Light scale, render scale, native color, and dilution scale basically just determines like all of these vectors. So light scale is your quality of light, right? Render scale is basically the quality of your rendering, like the resolution of it. Native colors basically shows how native do you want the color to be, right? So we usually just push it all the way up. And dilution scale is dilution scale. If it's more than 100%, then it will become sort of, you know, diluting and blooming. We usually just keep it to 100% to keep it realistic. The last one that we're going to cover today is actually the haze setting. So in MA3, the newer version, we have haze, which you can enable to have this sort of view, which is really cool. So that we can see a little bit better, we will put the position to be up, especially for the vipers, and maybe we'll put the auras a little bit down, something like that. Make the focus a little bit tighter so we can see how it works. Perfect. Let's go back to our rendering, go into haze, right? So the particle quality, first aspect basically shows you how good is your haze particle. So if it is 10%, it looks something like this. If it is 100%, it looks something like this. Of course, you want to keep it as far up as possible, but it depends on the resource that you have in your computer. Next, for the particle size, you can change it to be really big, like it's smoother, or you can change it into really small. It depends on the kind of venue that you're playing with. Usually for outdoor venues, you might want to put it on a smaller particle size because the haze are not very coherent. But if you're doing an indoor venue, you want the particle size to be a little bit bigger because the haze are more coherent. For now, let's just keep this at 50%. The haze scale basically it's just how good your haze is. If you pull it down, then it will start to get pixelated like this. So we usually just put it at 100%. The next most important thing is the layers. So your layers basically determines how many layers of haze is being put into this visualizer. So let's take a look at the difference. If we put the layers into one, it actually puts one layer of haze to overlay the light. So if you just go around, you can sort of feel that there is like a mask in front of the camera that simulates the haze itself, right? So when you're not changing view, it looks pretty realistic. When you're changing view, it feels really weird because the haze move with the camera. To solve this problem, basically what we need to do is to have a little bit more layer. Two or three layers will actually help you to have a pretty good feel of the haze in the space. Or of course, if you have the resource for your computer, you can always go all the way up to 8 layers, which gives you a really realistic feel of the haze throughout the space of the stage. Right, so we'll keep it at 8 for currently, and then after that you have blending. So it determines basically how good does it blend on the haze. We usually put it at 100% or like a bit like 95, so it's a little bit more coherent. And the last thing that you want to do is to change the animation speed, which basically determines how fast is the haze moving in your space. For an outdoor space where you blast all of your blowers of the haze, you can put your animation speed to 100%, which looks something like this, right? So the haze is moving here and there, or maybe something like 80%. That's also fine. When you are in indoor and haze are more settled, you can push this down, of course, to like 10%, and you will have a very aesthetic haze. So for this one, we'll put it to 50 so we can feel the movement of the haze. This is all about the haze settings. So now actually you have a pretty good show of your stage. Just a little bit more tricks and tips to make your visualizer better. You want to remove all of these yellow things up here, right, which is actually a highlight of your selection. To do that, you can always just remove show selection. Really simple. Here is my favorite trick. Basically, you can make all of this into a full screen for you to record, or just have an entire screen for visualizer, right? To do that, all that we need to do is to delete all of this window. Alright, and then what we need to do is to actually remove all of this item on the side, and to do that you can always go to settings, configure display, turn off the show control bar, show view bar, show command line, show encoder bar, and also the title bar, and now you are practically on full screen. And then you can just drag your visualizer all the way across your screen, and to remove the things on the top you can always just hide the title bar, and voila, you have a full screen visualizers with realistic display, which you can use for recording your 3D light shows or other light shows, or even visualizing after you finish your pre-programming to show it to your artist. One very last trick is how to get out of this view in case you are on PC. The answer is to press F2, which will open up the menu for the settings. You can go to configure display, and you can just enable back all of your show controls, and basically you're back at here. That's all about creating a very realistic view in MA3 built-in visualizers. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.